Well, hello everyone. Welcome to Illinois Water Day 2015, the second Illinois Water Day. I am Fernanda. I am a graduate student in Energy and Water Sustainability, and I'm the General Chair of Illinois Water Day this year. First of all, I want to thank all of you for coming today, and I want to thank our moderator, Linda Lilienfield, and our panelists, Stacy James, Wesley Jarrell, Megan Konar, and Teresa Steckler. I also want to give a special thanks to Illinois Water Day team members. Can you wave? Well, we have some of them are here and some of them are outside. So all of them worked really hard to make this event possible, and I'm really proud of being part of this team.
Thank you, Fernanda, and she's done a great job steering the ship. It's a lot to organize. I wanted to tell you a little bit about the history of Illinois Water Day, and so the idea came up last year with three of our team members, Paul, Majid, and Andrew, wanted to put something together that would be a part of the UN World Water Day events. And so last year we had different speakers come and talk about local and global water and energy issues. And this year we're expanding our topic to water use sustainability with regard to agriculture. And so that's one of the reasons we've chosen to show Cowspiracy as part of this year's event.
So this year Illinois Water Day is organized as a Let's Talk About Water event in partnership with QUASI, which is the Consortium of Universities for the Advancement of Hydrologic Science. Professor Veloki is the director. Let's Talk About Water is a program that combines the power of film and the science of water to inform and engage students, faculty, and the general public in active discussion about water issues and their solutions. So it is designed to bridge the path of communication between scientists, students, and the broader public community.
Hi, I'm Paul. I'm also part of the Illinois Water Day team. And I just wanted to introduce Linda Lilienfeld. She's a big cinema person and a wonderful woman, and she started Let's Talk About Water about 10 years ago. You'll see how wonderful she is later. And she's very humble, so she doesn't like to mention that she's worked with people like Paul Newman or Woody Allen, and you might have heard of them. And so she's done a lot of work in cinema, in movies, a lot of research. She's worked on documentaries, small TV shows about water and the environment. And she's going to be, we're lucky because she's going to be our moderator today. And that's it.
Thank you.
You can go.
Thank you. I was curious, how many of you in the room have worked on the project, are part of the Illinois Water Day team? They're all outside. Why are they outside? Because there really were about 25 or 30 people who put this together. It takes a tremendous amount of work, and I really appreciate your beautiful introduction. I'm very, very happy to be here. And Let's Talk About Water started as a way for us to be able to talk to one another, as a way to simplify information that's very complicated. And I just want to say a few things. I happen to love to talk, so if the movie needs to get started, you can give me the cut sign because I never shut up. And when I moderate, I don't even let the panelists speak. So it's going to be a fascinating experience. But I want to talk about simplicity of language. Illinois Water Day, the name, when I was with the students yesterday, we were sitting and talking. The idea of the language, the phrase, Illinois Water Day, is a really wonderful name because it's the state which is actually defined by rivers. It's a river state. And Water Day, it's like take time out to think about water. And it's a simple phrase, but it's important how elegant its simplicity is. And in a way, I also love Let's Talk About Water because it's also very simple. It's just what it says. Let's talk about water. And when we are in academia, there's a lot of hierarchy in terms of professors and the students, the specialists. The idea of breaking down information that has become so crucial to the wider public, I think the idea of how we build a bridge between the two is very important. But I want to put a thought in your head as you watch the movie, because the movie Cowspiracy is about a subject which I really knew nothing: animal agriculture. I mean, I grew up in Brooklyn, so that tells you everything. Animal agriculture. And I learned recently about an organization called Water for Food. And Water for Food, which is based in Nebraska, is also a simple expression, water for food, that says a lot. So even though this movie superficially will not be pointing to issues specifically about water, almost every subject in the film is connected to water. So as you watch the film and you think of what you're studying or what you teach or what you care about or what you work in, if you can make a mental note, so when we have the panel discussion, we're actually talking amongst all of us, we're not just talking to you, that you pick the piece of it that interests you or that you're studying and the link between animal agriculture and water, and I hope you have a really good time, and I look forward to being up here later. Thank you so much, and thank you for Illinois Water Day and the team that put it together. Thank you. So, I'm going to ask the panel to introduce themselves. And what I'd love you to do is if you could say who you are and what you do briefly, but just say a little bit of how you got there. Because I think one of the things about a group like this of students, the idea of how you grow in your life, just to get us started in terms of the context of your field, what you're doing. So maybe we could start that way, and then we're going to open it up for questions. And then I'd really like to talk about the film as a document that transmits information. And I just want to say one thing. Professor Voloki did something really marvelous. He had me meet a woman, Ann Reisner. Did she come today? Is she here by any chance? She teaches a marvelous course in cinema studies that's called Watching the Environment. Watching the Environment. And it's a very clever phrase because it's looking at a film like this and saying, okay, we're looking at something about the environment, but we're watching a film at the same time. So what is it we're seeing? How are we reading it? What are we getting from it? And what does it propel us to do? So that's going to be sort of a theme in the discussion, as well as the actual information that's in the film and the specialists that we're very happy to have here today to talk with us. So please.
Hi, I'm Stacy James, and I work for Prairie Rivers Network. We're here in Champaign, and we're Illinois' statewide river conservation organization. So we are an environmental nonprofit, and I'm a water resources scientist at Prairie Rivers Network. My background is in biology, conservation biology in particular. So before I came here, I did research on the effects of aquatic pollution on amphibians. And now at Prairie Rivers Network, I primarily focus on trying to reduce the pollution in our rivers due to row crop agriculture as well as large, basically livestock. Primarily, we focus on large livestock operations.
Hello, I'm Teresa Steckler. I work here at the university in Extension in the College of ACEs. My background is reproductive physiology. I have 3 degrees from the university. I did a 4-year postdoc at the University of Michigan assessing endocrine disrupting compounds on neuroendocrine and ovarian function. Currently, I assist livestock producers throughout the state on best management practices, any of their management that they need help with, facilities, waters, anything along that nature. And the reason I chose to do this is because, A, that's a segment of our society that wants to learn new practices and wants to improve, and it's also rewarding to see when they actually implement your recommendations.
Hi everybody, I'm Megan Konar. I'm an assistant professor in the Civil and Environmental Engineering department here, just next door. And my kind of main research focus is in the water footprint of food. And I'm also really interested in the global food system and trade in particular. So I'm interested to know if trade can help us make the food system more efficient and help us adapt to climate change, potentially.
I'm Wes Jarrell. I'm co-owner of Prairie Fruits Farm and Creamery just north of Urbana-Champaign. I was an academic for about 35 years, ending up here. I went to UC Riverside first, though, so I got to see the desert environment that I think had a strong impact on the film in this case. I talked about sustainability for a long time, and so having your own farm kind of puts it in your face. So we've been working hard to see what we could do, and unlike the organic, I'll put that in quotes, a farmer who said that the only rule, I think, of sustainability was money. We think it's a lot broader set of objectives than that.
I think I'd like to open it up to you guys and see if you have questions, because I have, of course, tons of questions. And there's 2 microphones on either side of the room, and if you're shy about saying anything right away, actually, I was asked the question about how many students are from ACES that are here. 1, 2, 3, so all those guys.
5.
I thank you. I would like to know what you thought of the film in terms of what you thought the message was and how you thought the message was portrayed and what you take away from it in terms of what you do. And why don't we just go down the row? I know it's kind of boring. Is it too, you feel uncomfortable?
No.
Okay.
Not Stacy.
Well, there was a lot to the film. So I think it's one of those films that really throws a lot of facts at you, and it's a little bit hard to kind of keep pace as you're processing information, because you're then presented with more facts and more facts. And I think it is, as your handout points out, some of the facts weren't quite accurate. They might have been a little inflammatory. So I think anyone who watches a documentary film has to watch with a critical eye. I mean, I see documentaries as tools to opening windows to issues that we might not be very familiar with. But we always have to ask the question, is what we're seeing truly representative, or is it someone's unique viewpoint on the world? So I guess with my background in water quality, that wasn't really a huge focus of the film. It was really more on water consumption and greenhouse gases. But I thought the film was certainly will increase public awareness that producing food has its costs. It's very resource intensive to eat up at the pinnacle of the pyramid, which is meat. So below that, we have the vegetables and the other products. But meat is by far the most energy intensive thing that we could eat. And as a planet, we're eating more and more of it as more and more people become able to eat meat. So I think awareness of our own personal footprint on the planet is very important, but also I think the film also tried to talk a little bit about, but could have done more of, the effects of corporate policies on what we're eating.
Stacy, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
When you talk about more and more people coming into meat consumption, is there any way that you think people could leapfrog? You know, this is one of the things in Al Gore. You know, it's interesting to me. I told you I do a lot of the talking with the panel, not just moderating. But when he starts the film and he talks about the fact that he saw this Al Gore film and it really influenced him and he really changed his behavior, and now 20 years later he sees nothing has really changed. So this film is the Al Gore film 20 years later. All right, let's all be vegan. But how realistic is that? So one of the things I learned since Al Gore's movie, which had the same kind of effect on me, like, oh my God, I've got to do something about this. There used to be a phrase in public television in the shows I worked on where people would say, oh, that's the Oh God, Oh Well series. Oh God, the problem is so big. Oh well, I just can't do anything about it and I'll turn off the television. So when you see something that has such a monolithic structure in the film itself with such a very specific message, how can you deal with it? How can you do something about it? How do you feel empowered? But this idea of what you're saying is, okay, we may think, okay, let's be vegan, but other countries are so happy that they can eat more meat, and it's just like being technological or buying computers or wasting more energy. Is there any potential for there to be a leapfrog over our bad behavior to be improving the way we live and eat for a sustainable planet in countries that have emerging markets?
That's a tough one.
Or you want to maybe think about that for a second? Or let's answer what your instinctive answer would be. Instinctive, there's a word.
Well, I'm not exactly sure what
I'm asking?
You're asking with leapfrogging. But, I mean, basically, overseas, we're in countries that are seeing more economic prosperity now.
Yes,
they are increasing in their meat consumption. And a lot of American grain and meat are exported overseas to feed that market. And so, so getting at your question, I mean, some of it is about what we do personally, right?
Yes.
And so he really kind of got down on himself for riding his bike and changing his personal habits. But the only thing that we can change, the easiest thing you can change is yourself, right? It's much harder to change other people. So I'd start with yourself, but then see if you can do things that support change higher up the chain. And so it could be something like supporting an organization that works on the issue that you want to change. And another way to change, of course, is it's a harder ask, but to talk to the source of your meat and see if they're willing to make changes. I'm going to end it there.
No, that's good. That's good. I'm sorry the way we're set up. I'm a little bit back at the podium, but I kind of like to stand, and they're a little bit forward. So it's like we have to cheat the way we talk because they're the ones who need to hear the answers. All right, Megan, take it away. The same question about what you thought about the movie.
You're Teresa.
Teresa.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I see you from the sides, and you sort of look similar almost.
So what did I think of the movie?
Yeah, in terms of accomplishing its goal.
I think it will accomplish its goal quite well from the sheer fact that it's going to elicit the response from a, what's the word I'm looking for, an emotional tug at you as far as livestock's doing this, 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 and this. However, having the same sentiments as Stacy, you have to take that step back and look at those numbers, because a lot of things that are presented in there are a little inflammatory, or the numbers are not quite accurate. And I was trying to think of it from a perspective of many of my cattlemen, and I could see where they would have that knee-jerk response that this is a trash video, et cetera, et cetera. I do think it has merit. I think we all need to think about how we are impacting our environment. We need to take that next step. We need to have an influence on the next generation. It's just not our generation. We need to inform those either that have preceded us, that are still around, or that are coming after us.
And what is it you do when you talk to cattlemen about these kinds of subjects? I mean, when they're so entrenched. Teresa told me that she's known as T in some places because sometimes she creates trouble. And I thought that was fantastic. And what she told us at lunch is that she's very straight talking to the cattle people here. So I'd love you to share that with us, what your goals are in terms of informing them.
Basically, what I see one of my jobs is looking at what's going on in the as far as EPA regulations, whether it be at the state level, federal level. The one that comes to mind is the WOTUS rule, the Water of the U.S. And some gentlemen will ask me, well, what's really going on? And I will give them my assessment, and I will send them elsewhere also for more information. But I also let them know that not everything is doom and gloom. They're doing this for a particular reason. There are these things that are going on, and as she said, sometimes that causes consternation with some of my cattlemen because they don't want to hear what I have to tell them. And I do my best to say, okay, there are several things on here that you need to do, and one of the simplest things that you can do is fix your gutters. Stop the rainwater from going into where your cattle are at and divert that rainwater off your roof. out away from that, so you don't have that leakage or that runoff or anything of that nature. And you know what? Most of the time, the guys are very receptive. I've had one or two guys that just basically said, well, I'll get to it when I get to it. But the vast majority of them are very concerned about the environment, are very concerned about their livestock. They want to produce the healthiest, best product that they can for consumers. It's not that they're just forcing, and I hate to use the word antibiotics, and I don't even want to bring that into this conversation, but they're just not indiscriminately using drugs, the land, or anything of that nature. They are trying to be the best stewards that they can within their means.
Mm-hmm. And Megan, thank you, Teresa.
Yeah, well, I liked how so much of the movie was really trying to change the perception of environmental actions from your kind of direct physical use of resources, so just the water from your tap, the can that you're recycling, and really trying to get people to now start thinking about the resource use throughout the entire life cycle of the products that they're consuming. So I thought that was a really great kind of shift that they're trying to get into public consciousness. So I was really happy to see that. And I think it's really timely as well, because we have this drought in California ongoing for 4 years now, and there was recently just regulation passed to have municipal use of water supply reduced. And this film really highlights that it's not really the municipal supply that's the problem. It's agriculture is a large user. So just I think a lot of the disconnect where people might not even realize that this movie can really inform people about some of these things.
Wes.
Okay. Yes, I would definitely concur with the other panelists that this film is timely, and I was really impressed with the reactions he got from some of the people who should know something about this and be taking it seriously. I'm not sure he proved the reasons for that, but I think that just the fact that it has been understated in many cases points a lot out. I did think the film had a California bias. I lived in California quite a while, and I don't think he alluded to the Midwest a few times, but I don't think he knew much about it. And when I lived in California, I didn't know much about it either. And when people came from the Midwest to talk about irrigation, they didn't know anything about that. So I think that it would have been good to have incorporated people from wider range of agricultural and water systems. Water has different value in different systems. This was mostly a prairie land here, so that would make sense that grass would be a good thing to grow. And that grass was consumed by bison or deer or other animals, and now it could be consumed by animals that we eat directly. But I would love to sit down for a day and talk to Skip about his what he did and how he did it. Because I think it's incredibly valuable to raise the point and hit it pretty much head on. But then I think it got a little derailed at the end. It's not just because I'm a dairyman, but I think that we're.
I'm sorry,
the
why
question.
did you say you got derailed?
Yeah, the question that you asked earlier about why Chinese would like to eat meat. It's because that's what they used to eat once a week or a month, and it's tasty and good and valuable, and it says something about status. And that's the way my family was growing up really poor, chicken in the pot every week, if you're raised a chicken and you're lucky. So, but if you could do it twice or three times a week or every day, that's even better. So many of these people are vegan, so already. So you want them not to change. So I think that a big issue would be how could we do this whole thing with animals a lot better. To me, one of the best ways to do it is just to show everybody directly what it looks like and smells like and what the animals feel like in all the systems that are producing the animals. And let people make up their own minds with facts. And I think we didn't, I don't think there was quite enough of that. Mm-hmm. But I don't think it was meant to be a scientific review. Mm-hmm. It was something to get people's attention, and it did that in a really, I think, a pretty good way overall.
Mm-hmm. So now we're going to open it to you. Do you have questions? Oh, come on. Okay, please. And please stand up. The mic will come to you. And could you say your name and what you do, or where you're affiliated, which college or
my
faculty?
name is Siva Palan. I'm a professor in the Department of Civil Engineering.
And could you speak into the microphone, please?
And I'm a hydrologist. I work on water.
Yay, a hydrologist.
Okay. So just a few take-home messages that I took from the film. The first one, I think it was trying to tell us to be more vegetarian or vegan. I have to tell you, I used to be a vegetarian myself, grew up vegetarian, and my family was strictly vegetarian. After I went to college and started eating meat, I was ostracized, my own family.
Wow.
So there are psychological reasons why people start eating meat. You mentioned this, status and taste and all these things. So one needs to also look at the psychology of people eating meat. Because when I was growing up in my own house, vegetarian, we had animals for milk and so on, but they ate most of the leftovers from the farm and household and so on. So there was no waste material to come out. So you can be vegetarian, and now I'm turning back to becoming vegetarian for health reasons. So I come full circle. So that's number one message, that, what's the psychology behind people eating meat? I think that I know that in Europe and cold places, you cannot grow vegetables throughout the year. So you have to, meat is more efficient in terms of creating and storing, waste. So there's a psychology behind why people became vegetarian, became meat eating in some places and vegetarian in other places. The other message that I got from this is, the panelists commented on the numbers, and the numbers did not add up or whatever. I didn't actually take that seriously. I could do much more calculus than he did, But really, the message is that unlike what my family went through, there is an industry that produces food for the animals, for us to meet the animals. In other words, so those numbers came through, and I think you can pick holes on the numbers, but really the logic is very, 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 very strong.
Yes.
That we are producing food all around us here in Illinois, not for us to eat, but for animals to eat, not in here, but in China and other places, for us so that we can eat the animals again. So that logic,
Siva,
in spite of the numbers, is very strong.
I looked up the numbers for Illinois, and 0.05% of all corn produced is for human consumption. So not all the rest is for animal production. Ethanol and high fructose corn syrup is also the others. But yeah, only 0.05%
is for food, for human food consumption. So that logic, you can pick holes on the numbers, but that logic is very strong. I think that is where we have to pay attention. So I think that really I want to understand the psychology of people. If we all want to become vegan or vegetarian, go back, we have to understand the reasons why people eat meat. I think in many places people eat meat for the status. I went to India last year. India used to be a vegetarian country. My God, people even Brahmins are eating meat quietly because it's a status symbol.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. That was wonderful. Mm-hmm. I'm looking at you. Somebody from back there. You have one up front and one back there.
I think part of
Please say your name.
Oh, my name is Connie Rue.
And where are you affiliated? Are you local, or you teach at this school, or?
I'm local, and I belong to a few organizations.
Okay, perfect. You are the community.
I'm definitely part of the community. I think that one of the big problems that I saw is that the corporations have so much power, and I think that a lot of these organizations, the environmental organizations, are afraid of that. They're afraid of being sued by them. If the FBI can come after you for talking against food because it takes away their profits, that's a big thing to be afraid of. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how that can be fixed.
Mm-hmm. Does anyone want to comment about that comment? Go ahead, please.
I can come.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
So, as a reminder, I work for an environmental nonprofit, and
she's accepting our coming to our panel. No, go ahead.
And so I do things like show up to public hearings when there's a proposed large livestock operation that wants to construct in a community. And I ask questions about what the facility is going to look like. And I have to be careful in those venues about what I say, because I do get concerned sometimes that I may face a lawsuit. Or another example is that there's a slaughterhouse up in Rantoul, and they process hogs. And when you process a hog, at the end, there's sludge left, so it's basically animal remains and other parts of the processing. And they actually land apply that stuff to agricultural fields. And there were some people who lived near those fields who were complaining of the sludge being just dumped on the fields in big piles, and it being very odorous, and there being flies. And so this group of people reached out to our organization for help, and we responded, and we helped them. And they actually proceeded to work with their own attorney to file a lawsuit against the hog processing facility. But then we got a letter from the hog processing facility's attorney requesting information from us on all communications that we had had with certain entities. And so we had to turn over that information. So we have to be careful about who we are and how we present ourselves publicly, and even in our own private correspondences with agencies and the like. So we do have some concern about being litigated. And as far as our, what are our, you commented about groups maybe being fearful of big agricultural industries. I think it's maybe not so much being fearful of them as knowing that we are outnumbered and outgunned. And so, for example, we're one of, I would say, 2 organizations in the state who are working on the issue of pollution from large livestock operations. And neither organization is large. We're a staff of 9. And so we have a small budget, and I'm the only person on staff who's working on this issue. And so we face a multi-billion-dollar industry and their attorneys and the like. And so we're just outnumbered, and we have to choose our battles according to our own, my own technical ability and expertise and time. And so we chip away at the process, but we just, if people cared about the environment as much as they cared about other issues, organizations like mine would be much better funded to take on these issues, but we're not. So I encourage you all to become members of my organization, prairierivers.org. But I think that there is also some fear of litigation, but I think it's mainly we're limited in our staff.
Yes, Wes, please.
Yeah, I'd like to just say that in 1988, I moved up to Oregon and got involved in one of the first TMDL watersheds, and that's a total maximum daily load watershed that focused a lot on non-point source pollution, which hadn't really been done before. Almost all the other Clean Water Act work had been done with point source. And it didn't take me very long to figure out that we needed an extension service that really worked on environment. And I tried to sell that to Oregon State for quite a while and got a dead no response. And I'd love to try to sell it here, but I'm skeptical. No offense to my good friends in the extension.
Why?
Because the extension service was officially formed 100 years ago to provide unbiased data and information and a basis on which decisions could be made by individuals who are producing food or by communities. And it worked really well, I think. It was fantastic. because we were able to adopt a lot of techniques. Some of them we might want to look at again, but many of them were made the quality of life and the quality of food and the amount of food much better. But we don't have that really in environment. We have a tiny bit of it, not nearly enough. What communities need is a reliable source of unbiased, scientifically based information about the environment. Where do you get your information
Yes,
now?
that's what I wanted to ask you next. Where should
I'm an academic. My bias is you find the experts and then you integrate all the stuff that they're doing. That's what Extension's done for 100 years, for production. But right now, where do people learn about the environment? We know that newspapers are kind of going away, and there's some magazines, there's some other things. But many times people can't relate that to their community in any way. And the beauty of Extension was that they were embedded in the community, part of the community, understood the community, and could relay this kind of information in a tolerable way. So that's my renewed pitch for somebody to step up. I'm not, frankly, expecting it to happen, but I think that nonprofits are carrying a huge amount of this burden right now, and they're horribly underfunded in most cases. That's not to say when I was in Extension and the university, I tried to do my environmental thing too, but it wasn't like you frequently got a whole lot of support from anybody in the system. And I think that's still the case.
I kind of want to jump in, if you guys don't mind, about words you're using: environment, sustainability, watersheds, and communication. So it seems like there's a character in the film that is his computer, and he shoots the computer a lot. I noticed it the second time I saw the film. And the reason I'm mentioning it is how we communicate. And you mentioned newspapers, magazines, and you talk about funding to do things. And the new technology is so ripe for being able to be used to convey information. I think often the words sustainability and the words environment, in terms of this wonderful phrase, watching the environment, this Anne Reisner's course, the word environment to me is so vague. Sustainability is so vague. There's so much information here, but how do you sort through it? So what we do is go back online and look for the things we are interested in. If we're hydrologists, or if we want to learn about virtual water or about meat consumption, we are able now to really pinpoint the things we are interested in. So then what happens is there's a phrase, ecology, used in internet behavior. So we talk about ecology in terms of the way systems function together, but the reality is, because everyone's very plugged into the internet, we find the ecology of the internet. So when you think of social media, and you think of fan films, or you think of Facebook or Instagram, there's ways that we give feedback to each other now that I think is really different than my generation. I think of you as a younger generation, you guys, and you are even younger generation. So when you think of changing behavior, what do you think the really powerful approach would be? What do you think it would be? What do you think it could be? Because I think we're a step beyond where we were from, and the reason I like the idea of watersheds is because it gives you, the movie is a lot about California, but we're here in Illinois. How do we make the transfer of the information that's in the film to us? How do we learn from it? So please, if anybody wants to respond to the very fragmented things I've just said. But you get what I'm reaching for. It's the way we talk to each other, or the way we learn from each other.
One of my biases is that we talk too much, and so that's not about you.
No,
Linda,
I've been hurt.
No, I think
I do talk too much.
Yeah, we have a whole variety of senses that we are seriously underutilizing at the moment. One of the things we do at the farm that one of our objectives is in sustainability is enhance the social community that we live in. And so, to me, education is a huge part of that, and we want to be transparent and accountable in what we do. And we'd also like to enhance the environment. We'd like to economically be viable, and we'd like to, of course, enhance society because we live in it. So we like to show people things and talk about how it works on our farm. And why we do things, and if somebody says, why aren't your animals organic but your land is, we tell them. And so the challenge there is that every farm open itself up so that it could entertain people. Maybe they'd have to wear spacesuits because of the disease issues that people are worried about. But we don't have people wear spacesuits. They walk in on their regular clothes and hang around the goats. And we like people to understand where their food is coming from when they buy something from us, and what questions they should ask when they buy things from someplace else. Mm. And I think because it's a fuller experience than looking at a computer screen or a TV screen or even a movie screen, or texting somebody about what's going on. So I think I wish a lot more places would do that, and I think there's a little bit of a movement going on to get more of that happening.
There was an ad, I'll just say one more thing, an ad on TV where a guy takes his 3 children to a vacation, and the 3 children are in the mountains somewhere, and they're sitting at the table, and they have their hands in the position of holding their iPhone, all 3 of them, either a little game or an iPhone, but they have nothing in their hands. They're just so used to that position at the table. And the dad says, you've got to go out and you've got to actually use your hands for something else. And so then he gets them to, cut some brush down or rake the thing or do something like that. It's just really funny because we're not even aware how much we are glued to our screens. Please, sir. Here. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Daniel Cho. I'm a senior in Natural Resource and Environmental Science. And I have a question for all of our speakers about the environmental stewardship and how it is being performed on the fields, such as the agriculture fields. And I understand there are a lot of subsidies when they perform CRP programs and when there's environmental activities that we do on the fields. And do you believe that without those subsidies, agriculture and farmers would support environmental stewardships? If I was making sense, are they willing to go beyond performing environmental stewardship without profits?
So do you want to start, Wes, and we'll go this way, or?
Well, I've been talking too much now, but no, I think subsidies were a bizarre thing to me on the West Coast because people didn't really get subsidies. In California, they got huge water subsidies. In Oregon, you didn't get water subsidies. We didn't grow commodity crops that much. So fruit crops were not subsidized in any way. Vegetables, hay, animals typically weren't subsidized. So coming to the Midwest and seeing it up close and personal, I think the most worrisome thing to me is that subsidies take the risk out of it, so you don't have to diversify. Mm. And that's the scariest part for me. But I think that in other industries, you're fined if you pollute, and here you're paid to improve your land management if you're in agriculture. I really think ag should step up and be a lot more proactive in what they do. Like Teresa says, I don't think any of them, although I wanted to blurt this out too, that I don't think any of them are doing, most of them anyway, are doing anything on purpose to hurt the environment. I think most of them, after living in the Midwest, I think they feel like they're victims and they have to pretty much they have to keep growing corn because they've got all this equipment. And they're part of the program, and they got to keep doing it. They know how to do it. So we have lots of great neighbors who I know real well, who are corn and bean people, and they occasionally talk about doing something else, but how would you do it? How would you possibly do it? That's one thing I think the small farms are trying to show is that there are some alternatives that let you do other things, but it's really hard, especially as the farm population continues to kind of diminish.
Megan, can you tell us something on the global, your international experience, what's happening, how people are addressing sustainability from?
Well, you asked about communication tools, and I think price could be a really good communication tool. And so related to the movie, where one of the gentlemen said if you actually internalized all the externalities of food production, the price would be dramatically higher.
Yes.
So I think that relates to subsidies, and it also relates to pricing inputs properly. So price could, reduce consumption. If the price of meat were its true price, then that could also really help people understand that it's a rare, expensive good. And related to that, something I wanted to mention was that there's different types of water, and so there's some water should be probably priced differently. There's groundwater, which has a different value than rain-fed crops that are used for feed. They have a very low marginal value. That water can't be transferred to other sectors of the economy. It could be a natural ecosystem, I suppose, but it's not conveyed in a way that could be municipal supply or industrial supply. So there's also that to consider as well. But yeah, the price of food is something that, it's not done globally, but it's something that is, I think, important.
Is the whole, how many of you are familiar with the phrase virtual water? Wow, I must be at the University of Illinois. This is fantastic. How would you express virtual water, the concept of virtual water, in relation to what you're saying, putting value on water? And
so most of you have heard of it, it seems like. Virtual water, or the
could
water
give a definition
so the
for
water
those who
footprint of food. It's basically just the amount of water used to produce 1 unit of food. And so he kept showing those bar graphs in the movie. That was basically a representation of the water footprint of a commodity. And then you can break that down into various types of water as well. Like I was just mentioning, there's rainwater, which has a different marginal cost because it's very cheap. You can't use it for other things, or irrigation, or blue water. It's called blue water. And then there's also gray water, which is the water that's polluted to produce a commodity. So there's different footprints you can think about. And virtual water, that's when you start looking at the kind of water embodied in food commodities that are traded globally.
It's funny when you talk about water, and we talked earlier about it's a very fragmented field because it affects everything, yet water knits everything together. When you describe what you just described, who is the driver for that kind of thinking to turn into policy? Where does it come from? It seems so educated and so smart. But why is water so undervalued in general, historically, and how can we get to where you're describing, which sounds very intelligent? How do we get there? Who does it? Who would be the driver?
So who would use water? Who drives smart water allocation?
Yes.
So then that's sort of not directly related to virtual water because there's no global policy maker. So a lot of these things, even though we look at global issues, that's the hard challenge, is that there's really no global policy maker. Decisions tend to be, national at the highest level, maybe, and typically more local. Water policies have a very long and complicated history that I won't bore you with now, but they're different in parts of the country, different in other countries in the world. But generally, they just have been undervalued trying to increase development, support people developing and using water resources.
Teresa, do you find that your cattle farmers think about water in this way? Think about rain gardens, or think about, how do they think about water? Let's put it that way.
The way they think about water is, do they have enough water in their pond that they can use to water their cattle? And it's not that they allow their cattle to go. Some do, but most of them have set it up that they have solar pumps. So it pumps it out. The cattle actually get the water out of a trough, and so that they're not walking in the water, contaminating that water that they're actually going to drink. The producers that I deal with, they do not collect the rainwater. As I said, most of them, which I deal primarily with cattlemen south of I-70, which is true southern Illinois for most of you all, they use ponds, or they have wells that have been dug on their farm, or have been drilled on their farm. But as far as collecting rainwater, they don't do that. They allow that to go into the streams and go down further downstream.
And Prairie Rivers has a rain garden initiative.
We do.
Can you talk a little bit about that, and how successful do people respond to it? Do you know what that is? Cisterns or rain gardens or rainwater capture or rainwater harvesting?
Yeah.
Are people responsive to it or negative, or it seems like such a low-tech, wonderful part of a solution?
Well, rain gardens are used primarily to capture urban stormwater runoff and infiltrate it into the ground instead of allowing it to go into the storm sewer, because storm sewers are directly connected to our rivers in this community. And so if the stormwater runoff is polluted by things like fertilizer you applied to your lawn or a pesticide or even your dog poop, that will wind up in the stream. So basically, rain gardens are used to kind of capture some of that water and then infiltrate it into the ground. So I don't consider rain gardens really a livestock application, but it is certainly something urban people can do to basically be more mindful of their own water footprint.
Very nice. Well said. Any other questions? I think, oh, good. Now we have a lot of questions. And now, yes, so we have you all on your side over there. Go ahead. We'll start here and there and there and there.
Okay, my name is Ximing Kai. I'm a professor in civil and environmental engineering.
Oh, how nice to meet you. Thank you.
I'm also one of the current board directors of International Water Resources Association.
Oh, yes, and thank you for saying that, please.
All right, so this activity is organized by Winterchild Hydrosystems Laboratory, student chapter of International Association of Water Resources.
I see.
So I think I should thank them.
Yes.
On behalf of IWRA.
Yes.
For organizing these wonderful activities.
Yes. And the acronym is on the program, so you can see.
And actually, this is the only one student chapter in the whole world.
Yes.
Okay. And the IWRA, the officials there, they just got to know this. They just got to know this. And so then this year, there was a water congress in Scotland. And so some officials from this student chapter are invited to attend the congress. So they are going to bring our impact to the world.
That's excellent.
That's great.
Excellent.
Okay. Also, I want to share a little bit with what I watched on the movie and what the panelists talked about sustainability, water, and food. One of our distinguished alumni, Professor Larry Mays, he's currently a professor in Arizona State University. Mm-hmm. Actually, he graduated from our laboratory, Hydrosystems Laboratory, many years ago. So his point is, regarding sustainability, particularly on water, his point is that this so-called high technology have led us to a wrong way. So his point is, our ancestors, they knew how to use a proper technology to manage water for agriculture and for urban water supply in a sustainable way. Mm-hmm. So actually last year, he gave a wonderful talk at American Society for Civil Engineers Conference. So I want to use an example more related to what we talked today to support his idea. Actually, I grew up in a small village in central China. Mm-hmm. So when I was a little boy, usually I ate meat only a few times a month. Mm-hmm. I only ate a lot during the Chinese Spring Festival. So it tastes really good. I always miss that taste because today I could not get that taste from the meat. Let me tell you how the village people brought up pigs and chicken. So every family they had a few pigs and a small number of chickens. What they used the husk of paddy. So in that area, the farmers plant a lot of paddy. We use paddy to make rice, right? But the husk of the paddy, they use that to feed the pigs. And they also use the grass. It's kind of weed from the cropland. That is harmful. The weed or grass in the cropland is harmful for the crops. And the farmers, they just removed manually the weight from the cropland and brought that home to feed the pigs. And we need water, right? We need water to wash the dishes. They use the water washing dish to feed the pigs. So I think this is the way the farmers over there, this is the way they did for thousands of years. Last year, I came back to my hometown after 5 years. I found a huge change. Now, the farmers, now there is no, no pigs with families. And so our families, they just throw off the food left from the table. They don't use the water washing dishes to feed any animals. Now they don't bring grass or waste to home because they don't need to. They use chemical to remove the weight from the grass. So in that sense, anyway, I just want to say we could not go back to the old time anyway. With technology, we move on. But in terms of the vegetarian or non-vegetarian, the essence might be we might still eat some, but we shouldn't eat less.
Yeah,
that's my message.
It's interesting because what you're saying is like integrated water resource management, the idea of things that all fit together to be able to keep them working for each other. I thank you very much for the comment.
I just add one thing, a quick thing, Wes. Next to you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Who's talking? I didn't mean to sneak up on you.
Wes, let me just ask one technical question. How much time do we have? Because I see the clock there says 4:03. We have until when in this room? Like 4:15?
We should end soon.
Like 5 minutes?
People are ready to present their posters.
Okay, because there are three. Let me just, before you jump in, one thing is this movie is going to be shown again at the Art Theater in Champaign on Tuesday night. Is that right? And we have two more parts of this beautiful event today. There are a poster session, very beautiful posters, and a reception. So we will have 5 minutes, and we have people who committed to answering their questions. So if you could be brief in your comments or questions, and please, Wes.
One sentence, just to follow up with that. My dad grew up in Arkansas in the 20s and 30s, and he said when you had to carry water from the creek, you used a lot less water.
That's great. That's excellent. Yes, there was a gentleman there. And the Mike, yeah, okay.
Hi, my name is Yatin. I'm a freshman in NRES, Fish and Wildlife Conservation. And I have just one question. Open to anyone who wants to answer it. So I'm a vegetarian, and I have been my whole life. And I just wanted to know, does individuals like myself, just like all of us, turning into vegetarians or vegans, will that have an impact, or do you think the corporations are just too big and too powerful right now to do anything about it?
Please.
I think if you look throughout history, how have movements begun? They've begun with an idea, and that idea blossomed into a bigger and bigger entity. So once the word gets out, I think, with today's technology and today's ability to communicate, I mean, it's an instantaneous. Whereas in the old days, it took much longer. Yes, you can have an impact. And I see that everyone can have an impact, but as long as you don't try to force your ideas or values on other people. That's where I have a problem with some organizations where they want to just force everybody. It should be a person's right to decide, yes, I want to follow this, or I will listen to you, or no, I do not want to listen to you.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Al. Oh, okay. Well, you're next then.
Hello, I'm Joshua. I'm a senior in biological engineering in ABE. So realizing that humanity is just a part of the environment, my definition of sustainability is to maximize life quality and to reduce waste, obviously. Do you think that teaching people and reminding them to distinguish between their needs and their wants could lead to this sustainability?
I do.
You can't always get what you want. No, I think it's a very important question. And I think when you have, it's just like what Professor Kai was saying. It's a when you don't have to carry the water from the creek, you don't think about reusing it. So it's very relative. Teresa.
I want to make one comment.
We could all start talking a lot faster.
Okay, I'll make this quick.
Yes.
I like old stuff. I like the old cars. I like a lot of the old items. While some people may scoff at me for being exceedingly frugal, I have found those old items last longer because they were made out of metal. We are such a throwaway society anymore. If we want to go spend $20,000 redoing our bedroom or our kitchen, rather, we do it. We don't think about the resources that is required to pull all that out that was already there. It may be perfectly fine, but, I'm not keeping up with the Joneses because it doesn't look quite as nice as what the next door neighbor has. And from one other perspective, we're building these monstrosity, in my opinion, of houses that are 3,600 or better square feet, and there's 2 people in them. And I know people that roof the houses and have seen that the whole upstairs is blank. It's wide open space, but it fits the home code or the building code, or I shouldn't say the building code. It fits that location because it has to have so many square feet. So I think we need to think about how we're using our resources, and do we really need to throw away that product because, it's got a scratch on it?
Within the architectural movement, there's actually Think Small. So there are very new initiatives and cool movies about them, in fact, about really living in small spaces and not using, in answer to Teresa, but there's a gentleman behind you, I think it's Praveen Kumar. You have a question or comment?
Thank you.
Thank you. That was a great question.
Just a very quick question. I'm Praveen Kumar in the Department of Civil Engineering. So sustainability is not just about the environment. It's also about the society. And we forget that a lot of these subsidies are helping some of the poor people get food. And so there is a complex relationship between the subsidies and being able to provide support for a lot of the people. And while there are subsidies, there are going to be fight for it because that's where the lobbying comes into play and a lot of the problem. So to what extent can these problems be solved at the individual level versus really at the policy level, which requires a change in our social values, our societal values, rather than individual values? So that's a question that intrigues me, and I don't know if there is an answer to it.
I'll bet there is, but I don't know it. So that's a really excellent question, Praveen. I think, I guess society is composed of a bunch of individuals, but and so one hope is to change enough individuals so it can change the societal perception. But that's a grassroots approach, and I don't know. I do feel like access to honest facts and the ability to inspect the system yourself may be critical to get this movement to happen. In whatever direction, vegetarianism, veganism, omnivorism. But
I'd like to jump in with this a shout out to Quasi, which is the organization that we work with and we're on the board of and members of, because what they have now is a water data center. And data is, of course, very important, and big data is, of course, a big buzzword that nobody really understands what that means or what it's going to give us. But the truth is there are a lot of satellites roaming around the Earth and giving us information. And so what the Water Data Center from Quasi is doing, it's free, it's open source, it's collecting open source data. A lot of countries, the government keeps the data so that people have no idea what's really happening. So in terms of facts and information, there really are technologies and collections. The Water Data Center is bundling this information, and you can use it for your research. And it's growing all the time. It was on one continent, now it's on 5 continents. They've unified the language of the Water Data Center, so it's like GIS, but it's called HIS, Hydrologic Information Systems. So I don't usually put a plug in for Quasi, but it's actually really an answer to trying to figure out groundwater levels or agricultural use, soil moistures. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, well, thanks for the plug for Quasi. But and I know we're running late, so maybe I'll just say something about the movie, which one of the I didn't really connect too much with the everybody should be vegan message. But the Cowspiracy message, I think, is kind of interesting because I see, like, the oil and gas industry has all these lobbyists, and they're getting subsidies too. But then you have the environmental organizations that are sort of have a kind of a balance to that. You have the ag industry has got a lot of lobbyists, and they've gotten subsidies and. I do sort of agree with that message of the movie that it doesn't seem like there's any balance to that lobby that's out there, and so I think to the point where this movie publicizes that a little bit more. As I've said to a few people, I think the USDA came out with their annual nutrition guidelines very recently. They have an expert panel, and they said that you should eat less red meat, not just because for health, but also because of its impact on the environment. And there was a complete uproar in Congress and among the lobbyists and the industry for that. And then there's no NGO or there's no Sierra Club or anybody else to push back against them like there is for other environmental issues like climate change and other things.
So we have one more, and then we're going to wrap up.
Marcelo's going to get the last word.
Thank you,
I
Al.
represent the beef here because...
Where's the beef? What is your name?
I'm Marcelo Garcia. I'm a professor as well, like many others next door. And I grew up in Argentina. So the first things I remember was having breast milk from my mother, and right after that, beef. So...
You have a good memory.
Yes, I do. And just wanted to say, related to what Alice is saying, that, and Siva alluded to this as well, there is a cultural thing about beef. And that goes way back, the same way that Ximin appreciated eating meat, once every 2 weeks. And so, well, people grew up in certain parts of the planet, and because of Argentina and Uruguay large extension of land, cattle was the main source of food for many years. What is controlling the price of beef and therefore consumption, like Megan alluded to, is the fact that it's a lot more profitable to cultivate soybean now in Argentina than it is to grow cattle, okay? So the price of meat goes up because it's a lot more profitable to export the meat for sale than to consume it internally because it costs less. And at the same time, it's far more readable to actually cultivate soybeans, use the land for soybeans instead of for cattle. So for people who have been very, very hard to actually change their diets, even though everybody recognizes that red meat is now good for you. I'm a good example of that. But at the end of the day, it's very difficult to transform people from what they are used to. Argentina only has a population of California, but it has a lot more land than California. But at the end of the day, it's difficult to change that sort of paradigm just based on the impact of the environment, because for people down there, they don't see it as having an impact. In terms of virtual water, the soybean, the amount of water that is used for soybean is probably huge compared to what goes into cattle, which is the same production as about 30 years ago. That hasn't changed much.
Yes.
So I hope to eat less meat, but I just wanted to add that.
Thank you so much. I think we have to wrap up. I just would get the last word because I'm the moderator. So I just want to seriously thank the Illinois Water Day team. There are like 25 to 30 students who have participated and taken the lead activity on making this happen, putting the beautiful brochure together. Again, there is the film at the Art Theater Tuesday night, so you can all come together again and talk about this. You have been an absolutely marvelous audience. There is more happening outside. posters and reception. And I absolutely want to thank all of you wonderful people, Stacy and Megan, Stacy and Megan and Teresa and Wes. And I'd like to give the audience and the panel a great round of applause. Thank you all very much for coming.